Welcome everybody to the webinar today. I am happy to be presenting and sharing this with you. I see a lot of familiar names on the attendee list, so hey guys, nice to see y'all. I'm gonna turn off my camera and get going here. So as Kyle said, we're gonna start off with a quick overview on the ReadyEdge, the features. So our customers have been asking us for a long time for things like a cloud service or Bluetooth, in addition to a lot of the features that we've had for a while, like SNMP and Modbus. So today we're going to talk about how the ReadyEdge adds these features to our current product catalog, as well as extends the functionality, monitoring, and control that you have on your off-grid sites far beyond what was previously available with our products. We're going to start off by showing you the products, and then we'll get into a demo. And the demo will include Live View, which is the local interface that is built within the ReadyEdge and also the GenStar, as for example. And then we're going to show you a demo of Solar Connect, which is our new cloud IoT service, which is also compatible both with the ReadyEdge and the GenStar, and we'll talk more about that. But also, in addition, you may not be aware yet that we have released updated iOS and Android mobile apps that will connect to the ReadyEdge and the GenStar via Bluetooth and give you a lot of all the same functionality that's available in Live View as well. So if you didn't like having to pull out a computer on site in order to do the basic configuration for your system, we heard you, and now we have that. So make sure to go ahead and download that app and check it out. And we look forward to showing you more about that. As always, with all of our products, Modbus and SMP integration is essential and important. So again, the ReadyEdge just expands the functionality and the features that you already expect from our products. So here's a close-up look at the ReadyEdge. If this is your first time here, I'm just going to quickly go over the I/O and some of the hardware features of it before talking more about what it can do. So going clockwise around the ReadyEdge, we have 3 0 to 80 volt DC inputs for monitoring voltages. We have 2 temperature sensor inputs. We have 1 tank sensor input that is specifically designed for use on generator gas tanks. So it has a EU and a US standard that varies based on the ohm ratings, which we'll look at. Then it has 6 digital inputs. Now these are sourcing digital inputs. If you're technical, we can talk more about what that means later. But what it really means for everybody else is that it can detect an open circuit or a closed circuit. So a switch. Is it on or off, or is it the wire cut, or is it not? Things like that. Continuing around, we have the Ready Rail. The Ready Rail is where you add expansion onto the ReadyEdge via the Ready BMS, the Ready Relay, and our other expansion products that we'll talk about. Coming back around to the bottom, we have MS CAN, which is a future-facing port that will enable us to hook multiple ReadyEdges together and to interface our newer products together into an integrated system. Meter bus is our other communications protocol that we use to talk and to network our products together locally. We'll talk more about that. The ReadyEdge comes with 2 meter bus ports that allows you to very easily connect 2 of our products and to get all of the data that is inside of these products over to the ReadyEdge, make decisions, control, and then get that up to the cloud. Moving on, we have the Ethernet port, a bit self-explanatory, but this allows you onto your local network on site as well as onto the wider internet. Next, we have a RS-485 bus that can be used both for connecting our products together as well, but it also acts as a bridge to get third-party 45 products onto the Ethernet IP network. Next, we have an AC detect function, which is a cool, unique function for this product. it detects whether AC power is available. Its primary function is to let you know that your generator turned on. After you send a signal to turn it on, you want to get feedback to say that it did. And then we have a lot of advanced automated features for our AGS, our generator start system. We'll talk a little bit about today, but mostly that will be for a future webinar. In addition, the AC detect can also just be used to detect the presence of grid or loads or other things. Next, we have a 12-volt output that you could use to power the 45 bus, or you could program it to turn on your generator. So it has two primary functions, one as a signal for your generator controller, or just as a small power supply. And then finally, we have the power input. It goes from 8 to 72 volts. So it's designed to be, the ReadyEdge is the last component that shuts off if your batteries are really getting low, to make sure that you have that data there. It's also worth noting that the ReadyEdge is very low power consumption for all the features that we block in here. And that really allows you to put this on very small systems. So moving on, we're going to talk about what does the ReadyEdge work with. So we think about this in terms of two areas: compatibility with our products and compatibility with other products, and then the expandability, which is around the Ready Rail, and all of the extended I/O that you can get with those. So right off the bat, you see here all of our professional series products. The ReadyEdge pairs with them seamlessly, all of them. There is a bit of a caveat for our SunSaver. So all of these products, the SunSaver, the SureSign, ProStar, TriStars, they all have meter bus, which is a RJ11 port, like an old phone cord. And all of these products allow you to very easily integrate all of their data into the ReadyEdge. And we'll talk more about that. But just because you don't have a Morningstar or a meter bus enabled product of ours doesn't mean that it's that the ReadyEdge isn't appropriate to use. And so we'll talk about how to do that. And then we're also going to talk about the Ready blocks as well. So let me show you what this looks like in the most simple example, where we have a ReadyEdge, maybe an existing or a new system where you have a ProStar, and then maybe you have an old SureSign out there as well, or a new SureSign. I think they're fantastic products that we wish people use more often. So it's really easy to connect both of these products to the ReadyEdge. It comes with two meter bus cables, which are just RJ11 cables. You plug them into the ProStar, you plug it into SureSign, you plug them both into the ReadyEdge. You don't have to do any configuration within the ReadyEdge. These products just are automatically found and added to the system. You can see that they are connected here on the screen, and I'll show you a much more detailed example of how this works. But right off the bat, you can see the basic information about the product, and then you can click on it to get even more information. So I will make a quick note for our technical users out there. For now, we're gonna keep our battery temperature sensor tied into the ProStar so that we still have our temperature compensation enabled and working very well, but we may add other temperature sensors for other purposes. So I've already mentioned this and I'll mention it again, but we want to be very clear that just because you don't have meter bus or a Morningstar product does not mean that the ReadyEdge is not going to be good at monitoring your solar system and getting you the battery data and analytics that you need to make smart decisions and preemptive maintenance. And what I mean by that is these 3 voltage sense inputs I mentioned right at the beginning are perfect for measuring small systems, solar array voltage, the battery voltage, the load output status and voltage. If the load is low and the battery is low, you'll see that in the data, and you'll also see the load shut off with this voltage input. You also get the battery voltage from the power in. That's also a monitored value. So maybe you don't monitor your battery through this specific voltage sense. Maybe you want to use that for something else, And in this simple example, we also are going to use a few temperature sensors, one to monitor maybe the battery or inside the box, and one to monitor outside or something else. So So what does this kind of look like in real life, or at least in a demo display for that you might see us carrying on at trade shows? Well, it looks kind of like this. Here we've swapped out the Sun Saver for a Sun Guard, an even smaller product of ours, but you can still see how with a very small system with a small Sun Guard, the ReadyEdge still adds a lot of value. You can monitor all the voltages, the PV voltage, battery voltage, bus voltages, all of these things wrap around the Sun Guard to turn the Sun Guard into a highly intelligent system monitor and controller that is again accessible on the cloud as well. And with the ReadyEdge's low power consumption, it is appropriate for these extremely tiny systems. Now we're going to move on to expandability. So that's our Ready blocks and our block bus, our Ready bus. Anyways, so we have three Ready blocks at this point: the Ready relay, the Ready shunt, and the Ready BMS. And we're going to talk about the basic features of each of those before going into applications to really dive into what you can do. So starting with the Ready relay. So the Ready relay is a 2-channel dry contact relay. Each of the channels has the normally open and normally closed contacts that you'd expect out of an industrial relay. These relays are replaceable, so if you accidentally pop one, you can just get a new one. They're Finder relays. They're very easy to find online, and we can get you some too if you run into issues. So the other technical term for this is single pole double throw relays, normally open, normally closed. These little relays on here handle up to 6 amps max at your battery voltage. So they're actually pretty capable, and you can put quite a bit of power through these. And if you need to control bigger loads, maybe huge loads, you can still use these relays to drive a bigger relay. And with the 6 amps, I can't think of any relay or contactor, whether that's a solid state or anything, that wouldn't easily be handled by this. So you can expand your load control to be, infinitely big and very large. We'll talk more about the operation modes later, but load control, LVD, things I talked about like that. Trigger conditions, comparisons based on voltage or charge states. All of that is possible. Even notifying if there's a fault or the stage of the battery, charging, and lots of things like that. Before I talk about the Ready shunt, I'm going to jump back just for a minute and point out that with the ReadyEdge, you can use up to 6 of these Ready blocks in any configuration and order, right? And I think that's really important. You don't just get 2 relay channels. You can add another Ready relay if you want. Same thing with shunts. If you need a lot of current measurement or a lot of load system measurements, you can add multiple shunts as well. And we'll show you more of that later as well. So moving on to the shunt block. The shunt block is a add-on that allows you to wire up to 2 shunts into your system so that you can record the current and then therefore get the power measurements as well of either your battery. You can set up as a net shunt in order to get much more higher detailed battery analytics about how much power is going in and out. You can also use it to monitor auxiliary loads, generator, auxiliary charging. You can put it just about anywhere. So if you're not familiar with what a shunt is, this is what we show on the bottom here. It's really just a very low value resistor, and the Ready shunt is compatible with, as far as I know, virtually any shunt that is produced. We have 24-bit AD converters, which leads to 0.4% accuracy at full scale. So these are very accurate, and they also, one of the big features is it will allow you to get SOC in a percentage based as opposed to voltage based for our connected products, which is another feature that people ask for a lot. And we'll show you how that works as well. And the last Ready block we're going to talk about today is the Ready BMS. So the Ready BMS is a CAN bus add-on that is meant specifically to interface and communicate with lithium-ion batteries that also have a CAN bus. right now with the ReadyEdge, the ReadyBMS will interface with virtually any battery with a CAN bus and get you SOC, state of charge percentage. Closed loop features and enhanced data from the battery is coming in the future. Right now, I think there's still a strong case for the ReadyBMS with the ReadyEdge, but it is kind of a single point device. It will give you your state of charge from your lithium battery directly, which is a nice feature if you're using a lithium battery and you want to know what the state of charge is and you have to only work from voltage. So now we're going to take what I've talked about and show you what this actually looks like in real life, or at least at a schematic level for now. Again, I'm going to point out that the ReadyEdge is still a very capable standalone device. So you might not have a Morningstar charge controller, and you may still find that the ReadyEdge is exactly what you need for your generator control system or for your remote monitoring or for controlling a detailed load controller or scheduler. And so I have a few examples here. You know, right out of the box, we can monitor the voltage and temperatures. We can add a ready block to get current and other information. Doors, switches, if your door is open, you can use the digital inputs to see that. Status of other equipment in the box is easy to measure. Tank levels, easy to measure. And I also want to point out like Bob switches, tank Bob. So we don't have to use the tank sense input. We may be using the digital inputs for a switch that tells us that the tank is empty or full. If you've done water pumping systems, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Solar irradiance, you know, what is the status? What's the basic weather conditions in terms of solar and temperature available easily? And also AC grid, is your grid there? And then this information with the ReadyEdge allows you to manage things like control your generator, power on off auxiliary subsystems based on the time of day or state of charge, irrigation pumps. I also want to point out, you know, heaters in general, whether that's a heater for your box or maybe a heater for a for an oil and gas cabinet with some sensitive data acquisition unit, or maybe a heater for a lithium battery. It's cheaper to implement a heater that sits outside a lithium battery than to buy one that sits inside the lithium battery. And it also allows you a lot more control as to when you run that heater to make sure that the battery stays on when you need it. And we'll talk a little bit about that with relation to lithium batteries later. One of the challenges, despite all of lithium batteries, great new features that we're getting used to. So we've talked about what it does by itself. Let's get back to the way most of us are going to use this, which is probably going to be a ProStar connected to the ReadyEdge, right? So off the box, you know, you can grab the ReadyEdge. I think it provides great value. You can plug it into your existing system and you get all of that data available both in live view that we'll show you again later and also Solar Connect. So by itself in this situation, I think it provides the value and the things that we've been wanting for a long time. So again, I'll point out, you know, once you connect the ReadyEdge to the ProStar, and it's connected now with Bluetooth, you can use the app to do basic setups or to see the status of things, or you can pull out your computer and do it that way if you want a bigger screen. Once you enable and set up your account for Solar Connect, now all of this is available online anywhere in the world. So let me show you a little bit more what that looks like inside of the box, right? So we're going to show you later, but this is some screenshots from live view. So you connect your product to the ReadyEdge, you set it up in live view, and then you can also view in live view, and then you can monitor in Solar Connect. So you get all of the data you need in all the places and much easier and quicker setup than you're used to with our products. So let's do a slightly more complicated example here by adding some load control to this system that we've been showing you. So in this case, we're going to use one of the channels of the Ready relay to control a larger relay to control all of our loads, or maybe our auxiliary loads, so that we can disconnect them either manually, remotely, or so that we can schedule them or maybe turn them off. In addition, we're going to use the second channel to controlled just the power to our router. So, you know, it's 2026, and the best way to fix a lot of computing devices is still to restart it. If you've talked to me, you've probably heard me say that before, but I think this is, you know, one of the best applications, and one of the things that talking to you guys that we see as one of the biggest values for this product. It's very easy to set this up. You can just have the modem reset once a week, and then you don't have any problems with long run times on these. We'll talk more about conditional logic and scheduling and automated loads, as well as, you know, expanding this idea into mini loads. And we'll also talk about how the relay can be used to integrate with a PLC or SCADA. Actually, I'll talk about that now for a minute. So a lot of times you will still have a PLC or a SCADA system, and our customers spend a lot of time getting Modbus working so that they can simply get the voltage and that there's no warnings or errors in the system. Well, you can just use one of the relay channels and just run it into a digital input on your PLC and say, there's an error or there's a warning. And then that gives you the trigger that you need to go back and look in ReadyEdge, either in LiveView or in Solar Connect. And that is just a lot faster and a lot simpler than the time it takes to set up, you know, and program, you know, custom Modbus addresses and things like that. However, all of the Modbus data for the ReadyEdge and for the connected charge controller is still now available through the Ethernet or the 485 port. So we both, you know, stuck with our long-term, you know, compatibility with Modbus and SMP, but now we can make things a lot simpler for you in a lot of cases. The other big use case scenario I see for the Ready Relay is signaling. So again, that could be the PLC we're just talking about, or maybe lights on the top of the box. I could see the DOTs that we work with, you know, putting a couple indicator lights on the top of their box, red and green. If the battery's low or if there's an error in the system, then you get a red light. If nothing's wrong and the battery's good, then you get a green light. So as you're driving past these things on the highway or wherever they may be, you have a quick glance to see, and you might find that that's a better way. Instead of having to stop and check the site yourself, you just see the light, and then you can get up to the cabinet. You can open the cabinet, push the Bluetooth button, which is the big black button here, to turn on Bluetooth, because you can turn it on and off very easy for protection and for security purposes, right? Pull out your phone, see what's going on, make some decisions, and you've just saved yourself a lot of time, because you only had to stop if you need to, and then using the app and the Bluetooth, you don't have to pull out a bunch of equipment to see what's going on. Another couple of quick ideas for the Ready Relay is IR lighting for the security systems. Turn on that IR light instead of running it all day. You could get a more save some battery power, or use an external IR light outside of the camera for more power, better lighting for that nighttime lighting. So, well, again, to show you quickly what this looks like in live view, the Ready Relay is easy to set up. You can name it, and then you have all of these functions here, and you can click through them, and you can choose your function, set it up, and then go ahead and test it. Once you set it up, it's available in live view to view. You can see its name and what its status is. You see on the bottom here, we have the Relay 2A is set for priority loads, and it is on currently, and Relay 2B, the modem in this case, would be off. And then all of this is still available in Solar Connect. We have a view with all of our added blocks, and we can see what the status is as well as the name and all of that. So I also, oh yes, okay, a different slide than I expected. So now let's move on to the Ready Shunt. So the Ready Shunt again has these two channels of shunts, and so the most simple example is you want to get high resolution SOC percentage available, because your customers really want to see that that percentage number as opposed to just a voltage. We totally get it. Just a bit of backstory here. When I think of SOC, I think of several ways that we view SOC, right? There's the LED indicators on the front of the ProStar that give us a quick view of if the battery is low, if it's nominal, or if it's fully charged. We can also see if it's charging and things like that. But more and more people want this percentage-based SOC. So we grab the shunt block, we put a shunt, configure it as a net shunt for a battery so that we measure all the current going in and out of the battery. And we're good to go. The algorithm takes over, and once the battery is fully charged, it clicks to 100%, and then it will monitor all the power in and out of the battery to give you a highly accurate SOC percentage. And we'll talk a bit more in the demo about some tips and tricks there. If you want to add on the Ready Relay or using AGS, the Ready Shunt and the Ready Relay together, I'll give you some really advanced options for load control and power flow control. So I want to jump again here back to our non-connected product without meter bus, the SunSaver, which is the product that we by far sell the most of. So everybody's familiar with it. It is a name and a brand in its own. And in this case, maybe we're going to use two shunts, one to do a net shunt so that we can see the power in and out of its unit, and one for the loads as well. And now we get really detailed information and analytics that we might not have gotten before about this system to see how much power is being used in the daytime and in the nighttime, and if the loads are using what we thought they were, or maybe if somebody plugged something else in. I'm sure nobody's ever seen that before, right? You install a system and lo and behold, suddenly it's using twice as much power as you've designed it for. So adding these shunts here is a really powerful way to increase your analytics and data so that you understand what's happening on the site even when you're not there, even with a non-meter bus enabled product. So again, we'll quickly show you what this looks like. You can set it up in live view by naming it. With the shunts, you have a full scale millivolt rating. So if you're not familiar with shunts, they're called something like a 50-50 or 150 or maybe a 100-500. So the first number is the full scale millivolt rating. So that's the amount of voltage that is developed across the shunt, the shunt resistor, at its full scale rating. So if you see 50 millivolts across the shunt, and for this example, we have 50 amps going through the device. I do want to point out here that it's a good idea to size your shunt and set it up as the smallest shunt size that you need, because that increases your resolution. If you only have 10 amps going through your system and you put in a 500 amp shunt, well, your resolution and your data is going to be a bit foggier, right? You're not going to get as good and as precise of data as you would if you used a 50 or even a 20 amp shunt for your 10 amp maximum load. It's a good tip if you weren't aware of it, something to keep in mind when you're designing. So you set this thing up in live view, set it as a net or a monitor. I'll show you what that is when we do the demo, and save it, and then you're good to go. It shows up in live view. You can measure the load, see the real values, see the amp hours today, as well as more information. This is just a quick view. And then in Solar Connect, again, it's all there. You have the shunt, you have the name, you have the value, all the data that you need is available in both places. Okay, moving on. So there's almost endless possibilities here. We have 6 add-ons that we can add to the add-on blocks that we can add to the ReadyEdge in any order, in any configuration. You can have 6 shunts, you can have 6 relays, you can have a mixture of both, in addition to all of the I/O that the ReadyEdge already has, not to mention the connected products and all the other features. So I had a little fun thinking about what this might look like for some of our larger systems that we know that customers have built. And so in this case, we're going to move over to TriStars because those are nice for large parallel systems with several arrays. Many of our customers might put out a charge controller with multiple MPPT trackers. In our case, you can just buy an MPPT for each tracker that you need, and that's a much more configurable and expandable and efficient way to build a large system, because you don't end up buying more than you need, and it's easy to expand in the future. So in this case, we have 2 TriStar MPPTs here, but maybe you have 4 or 8 or more. In this case, the TriStars are connected to our ReadyEdge via the 485 bus, because once you have a lot of our products, that's the easiest way to do it. I do realize now, I may not have mentioned earlier, that we support up to 16 of our meter bus products on the ReadyEdge, in addition to the 6 Ready Block editions, right? So there's different ways to get 16 devices onto the ReadyEdge. That might be the 45 bus, or it might be using the meter bus along with our meter hubs. If you think that you're going to be connecting more than 2 of our products to the ReadyEdge, just give us a call and we'll figure out the best way for you to do that with the least amount of wiring and clutter. Also in this one, we're going to use a generator that we can control both for scheduling to run a pump, an AC pump, but also to turn on if the battery is low. We're also going to add another charger so that you can turn on the system or charge it up or top off the batteries if you happen to be there with a truck and an AC charger. A common application for security customers. They show up to a system because there's a problem because you're running a security trailer. First thing you do is plug in your AC, like kind of like shore power, but it's on the truck, into the cabinet. Get that battery charging up, make sure everything's turned back on, and then you can start troubleshooting. We have 2 lithium batteries in this case, all tied together to the BMS so that we can see the SoC from the whole bank of batteries together. I'm going to use a TriStar PWM for load control or maybe diversion control. The TriStar PWM is an excellent diversion or load controller, and it's got some features. We won't go into them today. But so for example, when your battery voltage gets low in this system, we may choose to turn off some of our loads using the Ready Relay. But if the opposite happens and it's a very sunny day and our batteries are fully charged and we still have some sun available, then we might use the diversion control to run an extra load, like an extra pump system or something. So diversion can both be to divert extra power that's not needed. The batteries are charged, we have extra power, let's do something else with that. Or the other application for diversion would be wind turbines. Wind turbines have their own control system, and then the TriStar PWM and diversion load will divert the extra power once the batteries are fully charged. And in this case, we're going to use a couple of Ready Relays. One of them to turn on and off our AC inverter, our regulated loads, and then we're going to use a bunch of channels to do a really cool lighting system. So, battery low, you get a red light. If the fuel's low, you get an orange light on top. If the system is all good, you get a green, and on and on. Generator on, system error. You can arrange these however you want. There's some cool things you can do with it. So let's look at what the I/O map actually looks like for this. So if this excites you, you definitely like building complex systems. So in this case, we decided to use, in addition to all those connected products, we also have this extra I/O, right? So the voltage inputs, we're going to watch our regulated output voltage load. We're going to add a solar irradiance sensor. Maybe we're not using the third one right now. We're going to do a couple temperatures, the cabinet temp, the outside temp. We get the battery temp from our connected controllers and from, in this case, from the BMS itself. We have a tank fuel level, and then we have a water pumping system. So we're going to have a water tank full and a water tank empty that we're going to then use to control when to turn on that system. We can turn on the generator, turn on the AC pump, fill up that water tank when it fills up, and switches triggered indicating it's full, then it will turn everything back off again. Or we may choose to do it on a schedule every day, turn it on and turn it back off when the tank is full. Door open, if somebody's in your cabinet, you want to know the status for if we're charging from the emergency or shore charging, and then still have a couple DIs left to use. We have the Ready BMS for SoC, or maybe we're also talking to another SCADA system, so we're using some Modbus to get even more detailed battery information from the battery itself. The Ready Shunt we're going to do as a system net, and then also watch the generator current, and on and on. There's so many things you can do with this. We already talked about the Ready Relays as well in the last one. And then, this is all available right on the front edge of Live View, and also within Solar Connect. Here's our digital inputs as an example. And we'll talk about the notifications in a minute here. How do you get notified that something is wrong or that the door is open? So we'll talk about how that works as well. So now let's just move right into a demo here. So I'm going to pull up live view. I'm first going to turn my screen on quickly, and I'm going to switch to the other camera here to show you guys that we have a real ReadyEdge up and running, and to show you how some of this works. So I'm going to mute this for now, but we'll bring it back if we can see some of these lights turn on and off as we make some decisions here. Okay, so this is that system in my lab here, live and online. So we're going to show you first. Let's start at the beginning. You get your ReadyEdge, you unbox it, you plug it in. The first thing you're going to do is it's going to ask you to create a password, and then you're going to log into that. And then you are going to update your unit because we're constantly updating this. It's still a new product, so definitely check for new firmware, go through that process to make sure that you have the most recent features. And then running over the front screen here, we see in my demo system here, I'm monitoring lithium battery, my DECA duration. I also have a supply voltage that I use for auxiliary charging and to set up other, just to plug in equipment when I need it. And I also have a solar sense here. I just plugged in a little 5-volt solar panel, and you can use this as kind of an irradiance sensor, or in this case, just for kind of fun. We have the battery voltage from the voltage input, and then we have a couple temperature sensors, one that's just sitting out in the air. It's 19.4 in this room, but on my light that I'm running, it's getting up to 27. So we can see how these vary over time. I'll show you that. We have our AC detect sensor. All the information is here. Connected products, I'll jump to in a minute. And our digital inputs. And we have one alert here. And we'll clear that alert and we'll see it comes back. And I'll show you why that is in a minute. Also errors, faults, and alarms. All the basic information you need as a technician is here. And then you can go ahead and click on the connected product. Green check mark means it's good. And we can see all the details here. The basic battery voltage, and then we can go and get more detailed information analytics. So you're getting this thing set up for the first time. I want to show you quickly Solar Connect here. So you do want to come in, make sure your time servers are set, and then go into network, and then here's where we can enable Solar Connect. So you have to enable Solar Connect for security reasons. And you get a claim code, create an account at Solar Connect, and then you're good to go. We'll jump back to this in a minute. We have a history tab with some interesting information. And then the daily records table that you've come to get used to with us is all here. So this includes all of the data that is the IO of the ReadyEdge and its associated Ready blocks that are attached to it. Tank levels, voltages, min maxes, all of that stuff. Soon in the future, we are going to have all of this available for the connected products as well, similar to the EMC1. If you're familiar with that product, you can download the data. It tells you how many days are logged. Everything is pretty simple and easy here. We also have the event log that you may not use too often unless you're running into some tech support issues, but it does tell you everything that happens. A digital alert was triggered. When did it happen? What was, which channels it was, et cetera, et cetera. I was rewiring some stuff this morning, so I know that my RTS was disconnected for a few minutes. And that's really good information to be able to look through and see if things aren't working the way that you expect. And then we have our counters, which if again, as you get more familiar with our products, you find the value in these, knowing how many amp hours went in and out of the battery or the shunts, as well as what charge stages and how long we were in absorption or float, really gives us some good information to provide detailed analytics. So this information is now much easier to access. And since it's easier to access, now we can start focusing, especially in future webinars, on how to use that data to see what's happening with your system and to plan for the right amount of visits at the right times, as well as update or upgrade systems as those batteries age and get older. Moving on, we have a settings tab up at the top here. It is what it sounds like. It gives you all the information at a glance, along with some hyperlinks, your IPs, things like that. And then we have the command tab. So I'll quickly here, I can, if we jump back to live view, we see relay 1 is on and relay 2 is off. So we can, we also see digital input 4 is on right now. So if we go back to commands, I can swap these and we can see some changes happening. So this is in a control mode if you want to manually control some things. So now we see that digital input 4 went off. Our statuses here have changed. And there's different things we can do with that I'll show you as well. You can also reboot the control, turn on and off your generator on this tab, and reset your counters. And then we go into setup. Again, make sure you unlock to get into some of these advanced features. We have our admin, administrator password reset, our date and time, which you do want to get set up properly. Try to use time servers, especially if you have to with Solar Connect. And then that really makes sure that you're seeing the data correctly. If you don't get this set up, well, everything is going to be off a little bit, and you don't necessarily know if it's daytime but cloudy or whether it's just nighttime, right? So it's important to get these things set up at the beginning. Our network settings are all here. The information you can change, you can get out of DHCP and use static IPs, obviously, if you want. Set up your Modbus. That bridging Modbus to 45 that I discussed allows you to use third-party products, and then this becomes a 45 to Ethernet IP converter as well as everything else. Here's where you enable Solar Connect, which I discussed, and then all of our IP settings as well. Moving on quickly, SNMP, which will be a conversation for later. Suffice to say, we do have SNMP v3 on this product. And so if you're security conscious, that's important. It's here. You can set it up. Here's another way to get to our connected products where we set them up, which I showed you earlier. Easy to set up and make changes to your basic battery voltages and settings. Here's where we name our digital inputs and we choose. So I want to spend a minute on the alerting here. So we have active, inactive, or change. So alerting alerts you in Solar Connect, and then in the near future via email that something has happened. So you can choose to alert when the door is inactive because the door switch, when it's closed, it's shorted, right? So when it opens circuits, we're going to make an alert, and then we don't want to clear that alert in this case because we want to know that somebody opened the door. Whereas with water level, for example, we want to get an alert if the water level is low, but we do want to clear that alert if the water fills back up because the pump system is working. But if it doesn't fill back up, then we still see that active alert and Solar Connect, which I'll show you. For time, we'll shortcut through these. You can label your DC inputs. Here's where you set up your tank sensor, and you can label your remote temperature sensors as well. Here's where you set up your output. That 12-volt output I said could be on, off, or you can set it up as the signal for your generator controller. And then here's where we set up our battery info. Battery amp hour size and efficiency of your battery is important for getting your SOC right when you're using a ready shunt. And if you're using a ready BMS, here's where you choose your BMS profile. And by going between these profiles, you're going to be able to find something that works with virtually any battery. The Morningstar profile specifically was designed to be very generic and basic so that it interfaces with almost any battery to get that SOC for you. Scheduling is important for it's a whole thing, but suffice to say, I'll show you quickly how to set up that modem to restart once a week. So here we have it called modem. We have it set at relay 2B. On Sunday, it's going to turn off at 9 and it's going to turn back on at 9:01. So you've essentially implemented a weekly reboot to make sure that you don't get too much runtime on that modem so that it doesn't crash on you when you don't expect it. There's so much to do with scheduling, especially with AGS and other things, that it's a topic for later. And then here's where we set up the ready blocks. You guys have already seen a lot of this. We can name them. We can choose the shunt ratings. We have 2 channels. We can choose whether it's a net shunt, monitoring everything in and out of the battery, whether it's a monitor, or none is also kind of like a monitor. We can get into those details in another webinar as well. But they're, depending on some of the specific aspects and complexity of your system, you may use none or monitor in addition to a net shunt. And then here's where we set up the basic information on our relays. So quickly, I'll go from command schedule to threshold to show you how I can say if my battery voltage is low, then turn on that relay, and if it comes back above that set voltage, then turn back off. There's a lot of options here, which leads me to wanting to point out quickly that on our website, we have a demo of this. You can play with a virtual ReadyEdge exactly like you see me doing here without buying one. So you can see what features there are. You can mess around with the settings, and you can see what is possible for you and come up with some ideas. I think that's very important. AGS, this is our generator control system. Again, a subject for a later, for another webinar. So when you moving on to Solar Connect, a web-based IoT service, you're going to come to solarconnect.morningstarcorp.com. You're going to create an account, verify it, blah, 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 and then you're going to log in. And then you're going to add your device, clicking this button. There's that claim code I mentioned earlier, and then you get to name it, and then you're good to go. On this site, we have a couple systems, so I'm going to go to the one that we've been looking at in live view. This is the same system. We see the door, the water level, the DECA, the digital inputs. We see that alert that I was talking about. The water level is low right now. And then we see the remote temperature sensors. All the same data that's available in live view is here. And then in addition, we have some historical data. We can look at how the temperature in this room varies over time. Room temperature, see it gets warmer when I come in the morning and turn on the heater. Fun stuff. And a lot of these features here are still basic, and we're working on them constantly. So if you have ideas or you want to suggest something, please reach out to us. Just to continue on with device information, we have the basic ReadyEdge information, the added Ready Blocks information, and our SunSaver MPPT. We can click on that to get all of its current status information, as well as active faults and alarms. You know, the Solar Connect is really meant to be a fleet monitoring tool. So once you get set up, you can invite the other members of your organization or team. You can manage their roles, be it maybe they're able to add other people, or maybe they're able to actually add or subtract devices, whether a technical user or an organizational administrator. You can see what the status of these are and see who's been active. We also have site management. So within Solar Connect, we have sites, and you can have many sites in your organization. And in the sites, you can have different assets. And an asset could be a ReadyEdge or multiple ReadyEdges or GenStar at this point. And then within the ReadyEdges, you can have other connected devices. That could be the SunSaver or the ProStar or the TriStar, right? And all of these are completely modifiable and settable. You can come into the site, you can name it, put its location in. That could be address or coordinates. And then you can choose the asset. So in this case, we do not have this other ReadyEdge added, so I'll add it to the site. So there we go. Now this site has 3 devices instead of the other ones. So, and then account settings as well. So fleet monitoring, you can see all of your information at a glance when you come to the first page. You can see any notifications at the top, how many devices are connected, which ones are disconnected, all really important information for at a glance seeing what the status of your system is. So, and that is Solar Connect. And I'd like to talk about it more, but we are running low on time. So I want to quickly point out that okay, we'll do this first. So I've mentioned GenStar a couple times here. The GenStar has a new update, 4.0 something, and that enables Solar Connect. We always planned to have an IoT service since we had GenStar, and now you just have to update your firmware, and now the GenStar provides way more value than it even used to, because you can connect to Solar Connect. It also, if you're not aware, has the Ready rail, so you can add the Ready blocks to it as well. So there's a lot of cool things you can do with GenStar, and the new firmware really brings us to the next level. It's also worth pointing out that it has the new Morningstar CAN BMS profile. So now it will work with virtually any lithium battery that has CAN BMS that can be programmed for different BMSs or that we've tested. You can talk to us about it. We're going to talk all about this at a webinar on Wednesday, April 22nd. You should have already received an email, but if not, you'll receive another one either way. So yeah, so that about covers it. We'd like to open it up for questions really quickly.
Thank you, Eric. Those demos were fantastic. I know it's always a little bit unnerving as a presenter to give a live demo. Thankfully, those went on without a hitch. There were a lot of good questions that came through. I've answered as many as I could throughout the course of the webinar, but a couple I just thought we'd highlight. In the interest of time, we won't be able to get to everything, but we will answer all questions after the webinar. So firstly, I'll take a stab at the first three because the answer to all of them is no, and that's easy. Number one, does the ReadyEdge accept a SIM card, meaning for cellular connectivity? The answer is no. You need to bring your own modem, but that is a great feature request that I'll put into their product team if they haven't already gotten that on the roadmap. Second question, are there any fees or monthly costs for the Solar Connect service? No. For the free version of Solar Connect, to get started, to connect up to 50 sites, approximately 50 sites, there is no cost. The whole idea is that if you just need to get started, if you don't have high data needs, if you don't have thousands of sites, there is no cost to get started and get connected. I don't mean to imply that cost is coming after. Those sites that you connect are free and always will be free. It's only if you add higher data needs, if you want higher resolution, if you need something that's a kind of an enterprise grade tool with thousands of sites, there will be paid tiers coming. Third question, is the ReadyEdge Class 1 Division 2 rated for hazardous locations? That was a great question. Forgot to work that into the content. Short answer, no. The product itself is not rated. Many of our controllers are, but all of the accessories outside of ReadyEdge are covered under the controller's C1D2 rating if it is a C1D2 controller. But for the ReadyEdge, that is the exception. It is not currently covered. It is in a plan for that to be part of or at least under consideration for C1D2, but today it is not. All right, this next question is for you, Eric, about meter bus. You mentioned it a few times throughout, but can you just clarify for everyone what is meter bus and why you need to know about it for the purpose of ReadyEdge compatibility?
Yeah, for the simpler non-technical user here, meter bus is a plug and a cable that allows you to connect our products together, specifically the ReadyEdge to a meter bus enabled product. For the more technical people here, meter bus is our proprietary serial protocol that makes it easy to connect our products together. So it's both hardware and software protocol. So it's an RJ11 cable like the old phones, and most of our products have them. Most of the professional series products have them, the ProStar MPPT and up. And it is it's around to stay for continuing to network our products together.
Thanks, Eric. And then I guess we've got time for just one more before some closing remarks. Really good question here also. Can I access live view remotely? If you don't need Solar Connect, can I just access the live view portion remotely?
Yeah, so yes, you can access live view remotely if you have the IT and technical skills to do it. Typically that requires enabling port forwarding and or using an industrial modem or router that supports secure tunneling into your system. By and large, we wouldn't recommend it unless you know what you're doing, because it can open up security vulnerabilities. And so that's up to you to decide, and we can always have more conversations, decide if that's right for you. However, with the IoT service, a lot of that becomes irrelevant because the IoT is extremely secure, built to the most modern cloud standards on the same systems that are used for other critical government or large business systems that require extreme security.
And by IoT, you mean the Solar Connect?
I mean Solar Connect,
platform?
yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Right. All right. I think that's all we have time for. There's a couple more that we'll get to after the fact. I just wanted to make note that the recording of this webinar will be shared out to everyone who registered, whether or not you stayed for the whole thing or even tuned in at all. If you registered, you'll always get the recording. It'll take about a day to process, but you'll get a link for that. Just really thank you for everybody for sticking around with us. We are very much looking forward to supporting you on this exciting product launch. To reach us with any questions that are technical in nature, you can always email support@morningstarcorp.com for pricing and availability. Reach out to sales. I would be remiss as a salesperson if I didn't mention the product is available